Anytime you do anything in the public domain, people will hazard an opinion. When somebody's disconcerted by something that it was beyond their power to control or nonplussed, they will give an opinion. So a lot of times it takes the form of an aesthetic opinion. Oh, I like that piece of artwork, or I don't. Oh, I don't like the colors. I don't like the mythology. I don't like the composition. Oh, I really like that. That's inspiring. That's not what Voices is doing. We're just triggering a movement, a progressive movement that gives people the ability to celebrate the First Amendment, to celebrate this democracy, to celebrate diversity.
This is awesome. I mean, who knew, right? Who knew that there'd be a demand for murals in Dubuque, Iowa? Come on. Thank you for coming to Convivium Urban Farmstead today. Anybody that had enough interest in coming here today is going to be on the side of pushing art forward in their communities and bringing public art onto the streets and being brave about getting out there and changing the vibe. Changing the vibe in your community so people will want to stay. So new people will want to come in and say, that place is cool. I want to be there. I want to be in that community. This is Dubuque, Iowa. And we're going to change it right here, right now, with your assistance and your bravery and your love and your attention and your passion to the work and each other.
Graffiti. What does graffiti mean? In Italian, it means to scratch. People have been writing graffiti, for example, in the Colosseum, for example, like in every other place that humans have ever been, where we want to make our mark, but especially from an invasive standpoint.
Gaia was brought to Dubuque because of his facility with language and his ability to communicate aesthetic concepts well to a broad audience.
So once spray paint is implemented and the technology is readily available, suddenly you have people asserting themselves all over the world in ways that are free and expressive and ways that fight against dominant authoritarian systems.
In addition to that, he's kind of an aristocrat in the world of mural making, so he's well known, he's got a large following, he's a real serious artist, and to be able to have artists of his caliber come and interact with Dubuque, the Dubuque creative class, and instruct them on how to do murals. We're very fortunate to have that.
So far, I love it. Like, I'm actually being able to pretty much experience spray painting to its fullest. I'm like the only person I really knew that actually did it. So being able to be around people who actually just like knew what they're doing and been doing it for years and learning off of them has been something just purely amazing.
So for me, I've lived in bigger cities, but I also have the perspective of seeing where there can be growth and how there's a lot of ambition in places that are smaller, and how it's not necessarily a place that can be kind of looked over, that there's a lot of ambition, there's a lot of roots here that are trying to grow a lot of the time. So I think opportunities like this and events like this are really important because I can relate to a lot of the feelings and a lot of the ways you kind of, you know, soak into your environment, but also challenge it at the same time.
The response to our workshop was far greater than we had anticipated. And we couldn't burden one artist with 30 or 40 or 50 people. So we were fortunate to have Lewis come in and say, I've done workshops before, I'll take some of these people under my wing and they can paint with me.
We're out here at the Carpenters Union. We're basically just getting the wall prep. It's got a great background right now. We got a nice sized team, so I'm kind of having them work on different areas, work on little different tasks, all of them, as far as buffing the wall. So this will help make this whole process a lot faster. And just kind of go side to side with a nice amount of paint on it. Then just add more paint.
Two altogether entirely different approaches to instruction. On the one hand, you have Gaia, who's expressing everything that he knows about the subject, translating that in verbal terms, and hoping that people are understanding what he's trying to convey.
It's gonna look like a paint. And then suddenly, after 30 minutes, it's gonna, wow, just turn into this intense red. Hell's paint is not acrylic paint. We just spent 2 days thinking about theory, thinking about history, and then thinking about logistical application. Now we're actually getting into that application. So we're gonna spend today, once again, learning how to use a paint sprayer to set down the right coat of primer. A little bit of a crack in it, so it hits it and then sprays everywhere. Just make sure that this arrow is going forward. Move over, spray, stop. Move over, spray. Beautiful. Nice. After everyone gets experience with the paint sprayer, we're gonna get into some rendering techniques, some al fresco, some intro to brushwork.
Lewis, on the other hand, is basically saying, come up here, I'll put a paintbrush in your hand, and you're going to paint circles, and you're going to have an experiential moment on this wall, and you can walk away and your handprint will be on it. So I think the two extremes in that continuum, that broad spectrum of how things are taught to people, and to have people have the opportunity to experience both, that was great.
Voice of nature.
The Voices Mural Project is an initiative to, for the first time in the history of Dubuque, to place large-scale art in the public domain. In this case, they're murals. The urban core of Dubuque has been somewhat fallow and dormant in terms of its relation to art in the public domain. What Voices is attempted to do is empower people to feel that they can express their voice and place art in public spaces, and take that step, it's a vulnerable one, and empower them.
Still wet. This almost looks like oil. That blending. Yesterday we discussed some basic outlining. We discussed getting some distance from the wall in order to see proportion, using a pole, using sticks that you put together, anything that you can find. I wanted to lay a foundation of really basic tactics that are accessible and cheap, so that people can practice and then be able to scale up. Being very close is gonna, and moving in a quick and swift fashion is gonna help you get those lines.
Oh, these guys have been here since 9:30 in the morning. I didn't expect them to come when I got here. They were all already arriving when I got here at 9:30, and they've been here with me ever since. They're all happy to help, and they're all taking different tasks and asking me whenever they are done with whatever they're doing. They're asking me what else needs to be done. So, I mean, I'm more than grateful for this right now. Today we kind of started refilling in the areas where we projected last night. I kind of had them doing some of the detail work that I usually takes me a long time to do. So I schooled them on how I do it. They're all doing a great job. I got them all kind of like different stations.
Art is effective because it's very democratic. Art has a meditative quality, so when people confront art in the public domain, you'll frequently see them stop and pause and reflect, meditate. It has the power to reflect on ourselves as a civilization. It's zeitgeist. It's tapping into the spirit of the times. With Gaia, it's a stream of consciousness. He's just got all this information. A lot of it's theoretical, a lot of it's practical. And he combines those those experiences and does a good job with his lexicon, his vocabulary, his experience, translating that in terms that people can understand.
An achievement for women in this country, but is also about what it means, once again, to codify a landscape, to categorize a landscape, so you can control a landscape. And that control also looks like the preservation of some aspects of that landscape. Here's the thing about preservation, right? You preserve one thing, you can destroy everything else. So in museums, we keep the little objects, we destroy everything else. And when you have parks, we suburbanize and monoculture everything else. Fair enough. That's just sort of the world we live in contemporaneously. I wanted to take that further. I wanted to take Greco-Roman images and representations that exist currently on the county capitol, for example, and talk about all these assumptions, all these copy and paste moments. Like, people of European descent copy and pasted the Pantheon and then pasted it all over the world, saying, this is us, we're supreme. I want to begin to destroy those things and hopefully be a part of a decolonization process. Natural flowers, prairie, pre-contact, Greco-Roman image being shattered, tools on the right-hand side, control, simple, right? Very simple trifecta, if you will. Prairie monoculture, prairie monoculture.
Art outside, art on the sidewalks, art in the streets. It's a trend that's impacting urban life. It's transforming urban life, and that's what we hope will happen to Dubuque as well.
I'd say this gives me, and I'm sure the students, the Clark students, and everyone else who's participating, a much more realistic idea of what an artist's life is like. Specifically this kind of artist, I mean, it's a very romantic notion to paint murals every day and travel around the world. It really gives the realism of how difficult and how much of a grind, you know, how many obstacles.
I think that the symbolism of Gaia's piece is broad, and it takes us from a pre-European experience to a European experience to kind of a post-European experience on this continent. That's what that piece is trying to depict. And he's doing it through botany, a visage of a statue, and you know, genetically diverse culture of prairie flowers on one end to a monoculture of corn on the other. That's what Europeans did. So I think it'll be an interesting subject of discussion.
This is what the people said they wanted from the young boy, from the God. It's that execution. This is what the people said they wanted from the rap God, from the God. I'm like, oh God, oh my God, bitch, I run the game, y'all just commentate from the side. I'm like, oh God, oh my God, everything I do, you know I do it for the squad.